5 years ago, I put the Portland Pickles in Major League Baseball, and even though they started as the worst team in history, they've improved each and every season by targeting budget free agents and heavily focusing on the draft. We're running the Pickles as Moneyball on steroids because our owner is very stingy, and luckily we've gotten the most value possible out of players like David Fry, Nelson Velazquez, and Matt Waldron, which has bought us plenty of time for our homegrown talent to improve. This is a very important year for the Pickles because even though we've improved every year, we're coming off of a 77-win campaign, and this season we'll get a full year of trade acquisition Dominic Fletcher, and we signed Brian De La Cruz. We were in the wild card race for almost all of last year, but now we're supposed to be even better on paper, so I'm seriously wondering if Season 5's the year we make the playoffs. Just like every year, we're starting this episode out in spring training, and usually I'm against playing these games, but they're a great way to preview our roster, as in the first inning, newcomer Brian De La Cruz started a rally before Nelson Velazquez scored him. I am very excited to see what Brian De La Cruz can do, especially against lefties. And here's Randy Trout, who's looking to build on an improved season last year. He smoked this one to third base. That scores another run. After the first half of last year, I was ready to declare Randy Trout a bust, but he turned things around and got up to 85 overall, as the Pickles offense is off to a great start in this game, and Gavin Sheets launched a no-doubter into right field, but it drifts foul. That would have been a massive 3-run shot to give us a huge lead in our first spring training game, but instead it's only 2-0, at least until Matt Waldron gave up a run. After the best pitching year in Pickles history, there is no surprise Matt Waldron is our ace, and hopefully for everyone's sake, he is not another Pickle one-year wonder. Unfortunately, the Pickles have already seen a few one-year wonders, with Paul Arrington being one of them, because in his first year, he placed for second in Rookie of the Year before kind of falling off a cliff. We definitely need some more consistency from our offense this year, as there's the classic Matt Waldron knuckleball, so we still have a 1-run lead in our first spring training game as Trout goes the other way, sending it deep where it's gonna be caught at the track. I feel like we've seen him come short of the fence so many times, but it would be very fun if this is the season he puts it all together. Unfortunately, Seattle broke the silence with a grand slam, so just like we've seen through the whole series, the team just 3 hours north of us continues to have our number. I know it's just spring training, but I'm a little worried that we've gotten so many hits without runs, because on paper we should be a pretty good offensive team, as obviously we added Brian De La Cruz, but we've also seen great developments from guys like Mason Valenzuela, David Fry, and of course Dominic Fletcher, who we made a trade for at the deadline. We cannot afford to play like this if we want to make the playoffs, because as a cheap team, most of our players are on 1 or 2 year deals, so if we don't make the postseason this year, we might have to think about blowing all of it up and starting over. It is the beginning of the regular season, which means the waiver wire is gonna be loaded. There are so many good players here, but the guy who really catches my attention is Chang from the Pirates. You won't catch me trying to pronounce his first name, but I'm gonna claim him, along with Cade Horton, because I don't really know why he's here. It is opening day against the Boston Red Sox, where Brian De La Cruz got a hold of one deep into center field for a flyout, and we saw that a lot in spring training, but I'm still looking forward to seeing what him and Dominic Fletcher can do at the top of the lineup. Matt Waldron is making the start with that crazy knuckleball, and Randy Trout makes a great play at first base to record an out, but I'm definitely glad we don't have to face Waldron because that is disgusting. On defense, we already saw Randy Trout get on his knees for the Pickles, and now he grounds one up the middle past the pitcher and beats out the throw for the first hit of the season. That was a very uninspiring first hit of season 5, and it's not going to make a difference because in the third inning, we're still scoreless and Waldron has a no-hitter going. This is the perfect opportunity to get him some run support as Dominic Fletcher gets aboard, and now Velazquez is testing Fenway Park's left field wall, turning on an inside pitch and giving it a ride all the way to the top seats for a home run. The very first runs of the season were very important as we've taken the lead, and Randy Trout just secured a multi-hit game followed by Gavin Sheets. That gets 2 aboard for Nick Madrigal, but he lets it hang in the air going the other way, and we leave both runners on. We're still okay though, because Matt Waldron is still rocking a no-hitter, at least until Jarren Duran turns on the knuckleball for a home run. That is an immediate answer for the Red Sox, but with Rafael Devers up, I'm glad it didn't get any worse, as we could really use another run to pull away from the Red Sox, but there's a nice play at third base to retire the side. Thankfully for us, Matt Waldron has been lights out, because aside from a home run, our offense has not done anything but make it to Gavin Sheets to straightaway center. One of our biggest sluggers was gonna send one at some point, and Sheets is another guy looking for a bit of a rebound year after a slightly disappointing 2027. The glare from the sun is definitely a part of the reason things have been very low scoring today, as with a man on second, the Red Sox just cut this back to a 1-run game, so we're getting set up for a very interesting ending on opening day as Valenzuela has his first hit of the year. I feel like I have to squint just to see the ball, and it's definitely definitely thrown off our timing throughout this game, so I'm definitely thankful Velasquez and Sheets hit home runs because we would not be winning this without them. In the bottom of the 8th, we brought in our setup man Dylan Coleman, who had a pretty solid year last season, but after giving up a single to his first batter, I'm definitely nervous because Jarren Duran already hit one home run but strikes out. All he needs is one more out to get out of the inning, which he's able to secure, and of course, in the final inning, the glare from the sun is finally gone, and we're suddenly able to make contact. Maybe we can finally pull ahead, and here is Randy Trout, everybody's favorite man, going yard into right field for what could be the game-sealing home run. 3 hits on opening day for Randy, who was looking primed to have a huge year. Good pitching and 3 home runs have masked a lot of our struggles today, and our rally may not be done as there is the first hit on the season for Paul Arrington, which sends us back to the top of our order where Mason Valenzuela unfortunately flies out. James Getz is trying to earn his first save of the season against the heart of the Red Sox order, and look at him covering the bag for Randy Trout. So now he's looking to earn the last out of the game against the defending Hank Aaron Award winner who pops out in foul territory, and the Portland Pickles are 1-0. A great game from Matt Waldron and 3 timely home runs helped us keep the lead through the entire game, and now simulating the rest of the series, we were able to earn a huge sweep, including this game where we put up 12 runs on 18 hits. That is what you like to see. I know we're only 3 games in, but I think it's very funny Trout is leading for MVP, but something tells me these numbers are not super sustainable. I totally missed that Randy won a Gold Glove last season, so since Paul Arrington missed out for Rookie of the Year while Matt Waldron didn't win the Cy Young, it is actually Randy Trout who was our first award recipient. The Pickles have started the year 3-0, and they're looking for win number 4 against the Mets, as they have a 2-1 lead and Brian De La Cruz gets aboard, but with 2 outs, we're gonna need some kind of a rally, and Paul Arrington pops it up. This means we are once again relying on Getz to get us out of a close game as Valenzuela charges and throws the runner out. I'm very curious if our year can start with a win streak, as we are 1 out from securing number 4, but Francisco Alvarez is not going away. This is Getz's 9th pitch of the at-bat where Alvarez walks, so I'm a bit nervous as the winning run is up to the plate, but McMahon flies out, and James secured his 3rd save of the season. After that, we won another game and have a chance to earn another sweep, but there's 2 runners on in a tie game, and unfortunately, we stranded them. Before I start simulating more games, I need to see this win streak play itself out, because right now it feels like the Pickles are a very complete team. Here's our waiver wire pickup Chen with Fletcher on first base, but maybe not for long as he steals and is thrown out. We really needed a middle infielder with a left-handed bat, and Cheng provides that, but with 2 outs, here's last year's breakout star David Fry, who grounds out. We are relying on Jose Suarez for another inning, and to my surprise, the low ball free agent signing has been dealing, so maybe the 9th inning is when we finally break this tie, but Canzone is unable to get it done. I am a bit concerned as there's a runner on first base, and they're laying down the sacrifice bunt, which actually works, especially because we dropped the ball. I just tried to pull Jose Suarez, but I guess I messed up because we simmed one play and the game ended, and he was getting tired, so I have no idea why the CPU did not pull him. That is how Portland lost their first game of the season, but it doesn't look like it's phasing us because we just scored 9 runs in a huge win against the Yankees. We've had an exciting start to the year, but now it's time to start scouting this draft class, and after an amazing class last season, I'm perfectly okay if this one is not as loaded, and I'd like to see where we're picking this year, but the game is glitching out and is not showing me, so I guess I'm gonna have to find out next week. I cannot believe Portland is 8-1 to start the year, but now in a series against Toronto, they're gonna go down by 2 runs, so this is a chance to rebound against a very good Blue Jays team that is actually cleaned up pretty nicely, unlike in real life, as Cheng doubled off of their ace Logan Gilbert, but unfortunately, we stranded him at second base. However, maybe the 8th inning can be better as they've turned to their bullpen, but Valenzuela pops up, so we really need an MVP moment from Trout. His very good start to the season is the reason we're 8-1, but unfortunately, he flies out the other way. So once again, with a man on board, we're down to 2 outs as Sheets gives us a drive into right center field where it's gonna carry, but unfortunately not drop. Our bullpen has given us a chance to come back on this one, but we're not capitalizing on the opportunity. But at least the rest of our lineup hits lefties pretty well, but I spoke too soon as that is going to be a game-ending double play. That's an unfortunate way to end our 2nd loss of the year, so hopefully it doesn't set us back too badly as we're gonna get swept. Suddenly, we're 8-4, but we rebound with a close game against the Yankees. And more good news for us, going back to scouting, I can see our picks again. We're picking 9th, so I don't think this center fielder's gonna be available. And outside of the top couple position players, the next tier of guys is way further down the board. We still have the division lead, and it really lines up with the numbers because we have 4 guys over 1,000 OPS and Randy Trout at 988. And while it looks like he's fallen out of the MVP conversation, he's been replaced by Bailey Falter. Here is a revenge series against the Blue Jays right after we took 2 of 3 to the Yankees, and it looks like we're going to be going to extras, where we have a chance to get back at the team that swept us just a few series ago. We're back to the top of our lineup with 1 out, and you've got to be kidding me, we got picked off, so we have fumbled a huge opportunity to take the lead in the 10th. Thankfully for us, our bullpen has been awesome, so we've been given another chance, but Fry just missed a huge pitch, and there is another one. He timed it up very well, but just missed, so once again, it looks like Toronto could be our kryptonite as there's a wild pitch, so Dylan Coleman has a very tough situation. Just 1 more out is all we need, but he's facing Alejandro Kirk, who has been very good this season, and thankfully he flies out deep to center. Our bullpen is getting very tired, so we need to wrap this up. Nelson Velasquez to left center field. It is run down, but the runner advances. However, now there's 2 outs, so we have to be very careful in this spot, but thankfully we're ahead in the count, and of course we popped it up into foul territory. This has been a classic Portland Pickles game as they try to suicide squeeze but fail miserably, so thankfully there's 2 outs and Coleman gets out of it. This one is still going, but finally Dominic Fletcher is going to drive in the first RBI of extra innings on this double, and it's certainly taken a while, but we might not be done. Chang lifts this into right field, going back to the wall where it is caught. That would have been awesome for the waiver wire pickup, but here's James Getz as runners instantly get to the corners. It would be so fitting that they scored here, because I feel like every time we're in extra innings, something bad happens, and this would be the definition of bad, as Davis Schneider sends this into left field all the way back to the wall where it gets down, and that is going to allow the walk-off game-winning run to score. Our bullpen was rock solid for 5 innings just until we had the lead, so that was a heartbreaking loss against a team that swept us, but at least we split the series. After that series though, we're now in second for the division, so we really need to bounce back if we want to reclaim our crown, but that might be easier said than done because we're down 1-0 to Boston, at least until Chang drives in the tying run. So far, he's been an awesome waiver pickup, and there's a very good chance we're going back to extra innings, but with 2 guys on and 2 outs, maybe there's a chance to take the lead, and Nick Madrigal drops it in to do exactly that. That was a very clutch play against Boston's bullpen, and now Brian De La Cruz is gonna smash the first pitch he saw into deep left field, and with our short wall, that will one-hop into the seats. But with the hype of the Pickles, I've heard rumors that it could be reconstructed very soon. Whenever that does happen though, I definitely want some higher walls, because we really should have scored 2 runs on that double, but obviously we just took a 2-run lead, so I cannot complain. Now we just need James Getz to not blow another save, and so far so good, as he's down to his last out against Yoshida, who looks at strike 3, and the Pickles win. We took 2 out of 3 to Boston, but we're still down half a game to Texas, so it looks like we need to win some series against them, because last year that was not the case, and so far in scouting, I'm having a very difficult time finding position players that I like. On another note, I've sent down our backup catcher, Jose Herrera, who has not taken a single at bat after really struggling last season, and to take his place, I'm bringing up our 3rd draft pick ever, Wally Booker. We've got a tie game against Washington and loaded bases as Velasquez drives in one, so we've pulled ahead in another late game situation as Paul Arrington pops up into left field, where the runner from 3rd is definitely going to try to test for the sacrifice fly, and with Gavin Sheets, that was not a very good idea. Sheets' very high confidence might have missed us the chance to score even more runs as Chang lifts this into foul territory, given chase by Stone Garrett, who lays out for an amazing play. With the way Chang has played, that might have prevented a base hit, but fear not, Dominic Fletcher comes through with a deep solo shot to give us a 2-run lead. Fletcher has really struggled to follow up an all-star level season, so that felt really good, and it's been very interesting to see different bats step up every year for the Pickles as Trout drives in another run. We have been the kings of late game rallies, and by the way, aside from blowing a save against Toronto, James Getz has been awesome this year, so that's been a very encouraging development for our closer, who's still only 21 years old, and look at this, the ball came right to him, but Randy Trout had to go get it. I know he's been good, but that is passenger princess behavior, but we'll forget about it if he gets this last strikeout, which he's able to do, and the Pickles have won another game. That helped us win another series, as we are 1 game ahead of Texas, and our offense continues to look absolutely phenomenal. The Pickles are in 4th for team batting average, but it's clear we still need to work on our power because we're only in 23rd for home runs. We are also striking out more than any team in the league, so I'm very curious where our team ERA is this season, as we're coming in 2nd place. That is no surprise because from top to bottom, our pitching rotation has been lights out, and to my surprise, waiver wire pickup Cade Horton is doing the best. He could be this year's Matt Waldron, but looking at our bullpen, they are also dominating as per usual, so whether we get it done as a wild card team or we win the division, the playoffs are looking very likely, but now we're down 1 in the 9th against Detroit. We do have a man on first with 1 out though, so maybe Gavin Sheets can send him home home, and that was so close. But instead, the count is 2-2, and he swings at strike 3. We have not missed out on many clutch chances lately, but this is one of those times, as we lost the first game of this series, and the Rangers are making this a close race. Now it's time for scouting, and my search for good position players is not going much better. So for the first time of the franchise, I could very well be selecting a pitcher in the first round. Even though he's not a first round prospect, our Discovery Scout uncovered this closing pitcher from Canada who looks like he could be James Getz 2.0, and obviously Getz is great, but we could use another strong closer in our system. Keep in mind, one of them could move to the bullpen where we have a lot of aging options, but obviously that is a long-term future plan because our bullpen has mostly been shoving it aside from giving up the tying run in this game. It really seems like we live for chaos ball, as once again we're looking for a late game rally, and there's one aboard for Nick Madrigal who just gets too much air under this line drive into left field. All the pressure is now on one of our most consistent hitters, Mason Valenzuela, who unfortunately flies out. So once again, it feels like extra innings, but we should be trying to avoid those situations if at all possible, as Wynn's taking off and he gets gunned down. Even though his offense has been inconsistent, Arrington has been an awesome defensive catcher, as we have the go-ahead run at first base, but Gavin Sheets obliterates this baseball into right field. Watching it go to the foul pole, will it stay fair? It does not. As he's consistently done as a 6'5" beast, Sheets went balls deep, but even though it wasn't a home run, the Cardinals are throwing. The bases are loaded for Velasquez, who strikes out, but that is only our first out of the inning, and Paul Arrington, who made the great defensive play, comes through for 2 RBIs. We are looking better than ever, especially in these clutch situations, as Gorman makes a great play, but only gets one more out. So there's one more chance for Dominic Fletcher, who got a curveball right down the middle, and we're going to take advantage of that for 2 more runs. The Pickles are exploding all over this Cardinal offense, as even Madrigal gets in on the action, which was the final run in an absolute blowout. That is another series win in the books, so we are effectively holding off Texas, especially because guys like Dominic Fletcher and Paul Arrington are really starting to heat up. The Portland Pickles have the best record in the American League, and they're trying to sweep the Chicago Cubs, who just tied the game, and just based on how many close games we've been in this season, I'm surprised our record is so good. We could be going to extras, as there's a beautiful strikeout, but since we're the home team, we have a chance for a walk-off, as Fletcher keeps this one fair down the line, where he's in a foot race to first base, but is thrown out. That was so close to being a single, and it would have given us 2 aboard, as Madrigal's able to drop this in, but nonetheless, the winning run is on base, and if he hadn't dove back to first, Valenzuela very well might have just won it. That's okay though, because there's 1 out, but make that 2 as Randy Trout hits it right to third base, and now Gavin Sheets got intentionally walked, so the bases are loaded for David Fry. Fry was our best hitter last season and has a chance to end it, but unfortunately we blew it, and obviously that was a very rough missed opportunity, but one of our longest tenured Pickles, Tom Cosgrove, is dealing. Just like always, our bullpen has given us a second chance to win it, and Velasquez on the first pitch he saw was able to sneak it through the infield and walk it off for Portland. They definitely cut it down to the wire, but better late than ever, as we're suddenly up 3 games in the West. It is time for our first division series of the year against the Astros, and O'Neill just tied it up, so that breaks Cade Horton's shutout, but he's not going to allow any more runs. Here's Randy Trout, who is hitting .352 with 4 home runs on the year, but make that number 5 to give us the lead right back. An absolute moonshot for our superstar first baseman, and it's even more impressive that he did that against the reigning AL Cy Young winner, Zach Gallen, as Gavin Sheets is going to follow up with a double off the wall. It has been an absolute pitcher's duel today, but finally both offenses are waking up as they're in their bullpen, and Brian De La Cruz is going to score an RBI. How about the Pickles being late game kings? But now with the bases loaded, they are in a rough spot, so we really need Dylan Coleman to dial in, and there is out number 2. He's up against former Pickle Dom Smith, but walks him, so that cuts it to a 1-run game, so I put in Engelhart, and thankfully he gets us out of the inning. We're going to be relying on James Getz for the save, but Rodolfo Castro is going to make it a little easier with a pinch hit home run. One of the best lefty mashers on the team comes through, so that takes a ton of pressure off of James, who gets the easy save. Last year got derailed by our division rivals, so it feels very good to come out and sweep the Astros. And looking at scouting, I think I finally found a position player I would draft at number 9. To start June, we are up 7 games in the West, and looking at our minor league system, there's one guy who I cannot leave down any longer, and that's Joaquin Cabrera, who at AAA is hitting .340 with a .997 OPS. He was the last position player we selected in our very first draft, and his skill set is very similar to Mason Valenzuela's, so I'm going to complete that draft class by bringing him up to the MLB. I also think this is the perfect time to move on from Nick Madrigal, who only has 1 year left on his deal, and I think the Philadelphia Phillies Phillies are the perfect place to move him to. Since Madrigal has been pretty disappointing, this move is not going to cost them very much, and I think a B potential reliever is a pretty fair return for a rental. We just made 2 moves that improve our team leading up to this series against Texas. Now we're taking on Texas, who just like Houston had our number last season, but we did beat them to end last season, so I'm interested in seeing how this year goes, because not performing well against them could be a huge make or break for our season. With a man on first, I put in rookie catcher Wally Booker, who unfortunately flies out, so once again the Pickles are going to extras, where Brian De La Cruz is our first guy up and sends a line drive into left center field that's gonna be run down but allows Booker to advance. The go-ahead run is now at third, but since Rocker hit Fletcher, there's runners at the corners and Castro hits this more than deep enough to put Portland ahead. James Getz is very tired, so we're giving him a rest day, and maybe that's a bad idea because right on cue the Rangers tie it back up. That is unfortunate, but Allard pulled himself back together. So once again, we're looking to regain the lead, and a wild pitch will certainly help. So with 0 outs, the go-ahead run is at third base, and Fry hits this more than deep enough to score him. Sac flies aren't fancy, but they get the job done. But here's a terrible matchup, as we have Nelson Velazquez against a lefty with no pinch hit options available, and it's a double play. I was really hoping we could rally to add another run to our lead, but ever since allowing that RBI single in the 10th, Allard is locked back in, and Cabrera just saved a run. Just blocking that one prevented the run from scoring, but it did not matter in the end. As they scored on the sacrifice bunt, this one's hit hard to right field, but it is caught. Here's backup catcher Wally Booker, who goes the other way, but unfortunately, it's not deep enough to tag. And now they're very smart to walk De La Cruz, because Dominic Fletcher cannot hit lefties at all, so this could be our first scoreless inning of extras. But Fletcher's got a full count as the runners go, and he's able to deliver, scoring not 1, but 2 runners on a big double. It is a lefty-lefty matchup, but it does not matter. Fletcher comes through, and Cosgrove's in at pitcher to close it out. He is already in a good spot with 1 out, but unfortunately Lowe is able to sneak this one through the infield to score another, unless we can throw the runner out, which is gonna be close, and he is gone. That was the last straw for Texas, who did a very good job rallying back, but in the end, the Pickles were too much for them. Now I'm curious how the rest of the series is gonna go as we win the next game, but before we sim the last game, we need to finish scouting, and as you can see, Cal Gordon looks like a pretty solid prospect, but I want to finish his profile. We could not sweep the Rangers, but it's still another series win, which has put us 9 games up in the AL West. Also checking on awards, there's no Pickles in the MVP race, but once again, Matt Waldron is in third for Cy Young. After being picked up on waivers last season, he is putting together another amazing year, but in our next game, we've given up 10 runs to the Angels. Down to our last out, we're pinch hitting Dominic Fletcher, who does have the highest clutch rating on the team, lifting this one to center field, but unfortunately, he's just underneath it, and we have lost to LA. That is a very unfortunate loss, but on the bright side, in his first ever start, Joaquin Cabrera had 4 hits, and then we finished the scouting profile on Cal Gordon, who actually looks pretty good. Looking at what position player to target next, I think I have no choice but to at least look at Emery McCarty, because he's ridiculous. So now that scouting's complete, we're going to simulate the last game against the Angels, who won the series. However, we can bounce back by sweeping the Arizona Diamondbacks, but unfortunately, we stranded 2 runners, so it's still 0-0 in the 9th inning, at least until Nelson Velazquez absolutely decimates this baseball into left field. He has really struggled this year, so it's nice to see him deliver in a big moment, as that was actually a pinch hit home run, and here's Joaquin Cabrera going the other way. I am so glad we gave him a chance, because in 38 at-bats, he is dominant, and even in a limited sample size, is a way better option for Nick Madrigal, as he's taking off for second and gets in. He is in scoring position for De La Cruz, but unfortunately, we were late on that one and popped it up, so there's just a 1-run lead for Getz. He has developed into one of baseball's best closers, and that is definitely a feel-good story after a few years of inconsistent play. We secured the sweep against the Diamondbacks, just in time for this series against Seattle, where Cabrera continues to produce, driving in a run on a sac fly. Now we just trail by 1 run, but thankfully Paul Arrington comes through in the clutch to tie it. So if we've learned anything about the Pickles, it's that they can really go deep and last long in games. But now we're in trouble because they have runners at the corners, but not anymore because that bunt failed miserably. If you guys thought that our bunting was bad, Seattle just came in and said, hold my beer, as they fumbled away a really good scoring chance. So there's 1 aboard for our best player, Randy Trout, who unfortunately flies out. And unless De La Cruz can do something crazy, it looks like it's going to be tied going into the 9th inning. After tossing a scoreless frame, our bullpen's giving us a chance to walk it off. And I think it's really funny, the Mariners are so good that Brian Wu is their 6th best pitcher, as Cabrera's gonna stretch this one into a double. The winning run is on second, behind with 2 outs, so we need Paul Arrington to produce again, but he is already facing an 0-2 count. This is a very intense at-bat because I've really been rooting for our rookie catcher who strikes out. Lucky for us, they're not going to score, and in nearly all of these extra inning games, our bullpen deserves all the credit just like they did here because Dominic Fletcher was able to win it. If at first you don't succeed, try again is definitely the new Pickles motto because thanks to our bullpen, we have once again sweat out a very close game. Here's the last game of the series where we're down 1 run, but we're able to win it, and this was another walk-off victory where it looks like Mason Valenzuela ended it. It is time for the MLB draft where honestly, our Discovery Scouts have greatly saved this class because if you remember, I was having a very hard time finding good position player prospects, but the last couple weeks of Discovery really changed that. As far as strategy goes, I'm just staying true to my board, selecting any position player that falls, and we do have a generational prospect in this draft in Emery McCarty, and even though the game tries to trick us into thinking he's not generational, he definitely is. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I'm pretty against drafting pitchers high because the game produces so many of them, especially in the back half of the draft. So for spots where I don't have a position player, I will just take a pitcher. However, outside of James Getz, we do not have a quality pure closer, so I'm interested in drafting one of these 4 guys, with my very favorite option being John Cozart with that high potential range. I would love to get any of these top 6 position players, but I think our most realistic option is gonna have to be Cal Gordon, and even though he'd definitely be a reach, that contact and speed combo is worth it. The other guy that I would love to drop though is Roger Logan, who basically does everything that Gordon does but better, but of course the big fish is McCarty, who we have no chance to get. This pitcher who went number 1 is gonna be super good. I definitely would have taken him if he fell, and there goes Cesar Molina. So it is very interesting, McCarty is still on the board as there goes Whitfield, and then I cannot believe this, Roger Logan's off the board at number 4, but there are 3 picks until we get a generational first baseman, as I cannot believe Toronto's the only team standing in our way, and they took Alex Langston. What a fumble. You have got to be kidding me. A generational first baseman has fallen into our lap, and if you're asking how I know that he's generational, it's because every generational talent has a 5 difference between their vision and discipline. Cal Gordon, you would have been a great Portland Pickle, but of course, I have to go with Emery McCarty. Maybe there's some positional controversy with Trout, but who cares? In the second round, there was a huge run on the closers that I was interested in, but thankfully, looking at our board, John Cozart is still here, so I don't have to settle with Kurt Reddy, whose overall is already higher than his potential. So John Cozart, welcome to the Pickles. With our next selection, my board is in no particular order, so I think I'm just gonna go with the best player available in Jack Macias, I think is how you pronounce it. I have no idea, but I see contact and speed, so I'm gonna go for it. And now looking at our options in round number 3, I'm not really seeing a ton that I like, so I think I'm just gonna go with this guaranteed high potential pitching prospect. Now I have no idea what to do because the next best player on my board is a pitcher and Joey Marrero, and honestly, even though I took the generational guy, I'm running out of time and he's guaranteed to have good potential. We can always trade him for other prospects. I don't really know if I'm happy with that selection, but there's a few good pitchers left on the board. However, I think the best move is to go with Hugh Fodor, a third baseman who doesn't have great contact, but honestly, I really like the upside of an 18-year-old who can hit for power. Let's take a chance on him. That brings me to round 6, where I have 3 guys who I don't really know that much about. Chris Herrera kind of looks like a Walmart Mason Valenzuela. There's no way his potential is going to be that good, and I think the same goes for Cam Rosado. So I think the best move is to end the draft with a pitcher, and between the guys that I have scouted, Robbie Staub is definitely the best option, so I'm pulling the trigger. That is a great value. I really think that draft did wonders for the #1 farm system in all of baseball, as just scrolling down, there is at least 1 pickle on every single page, especially near the bottom where we have a ton, and to be exact, I see 19 top 100 prospects. We are taking on the Rangers in our last game before the break, and as you've learned to expect from this team, this is a close game, tied up 5-5 in the 8th. By the way, after being our best player last season, David Fry has really struggled, and right now our entire offense is struggling, at least until Gavin Sheets almost took their pitcher's head off. That was always my worst nightmare as a pitcher, and honestly, that's probably why I only pitched 1 inning of Little League, as we fly out and miss a scoring chance. Now we're once again relying on our bullpen, and as always, they're absolutely dealing, as Alcala blocks that with his glove and gets the out. This gives the Pickles a walk-off opportunity as Cabrera gets a hold of this into center field, but it's gonna be caught, so we're counting on Alcala one more time, but it's definitely a little scary facing Corey Seager, and what a play at short from Chang. He throws to first in time. Their extra runner has 94 speed, so he definitely would have scored, and unfortunately, it's gonna happen on the very next at bat. Now we need to close out the first half of the season doing what we do best by coming back from down 1 to win this game. There's a full count for Randy Trout, who's gonna walk. So here's Mason Valenzuela faced with 1 out with a runner at third. Corey Seager makes the play at short. Can we outrun it? We are not able to. That's a loss. Such an unfortunate way to end the first half of the season, but I'm definitely satisfied, up 12 games in the division. And on top of that, we have the best record not only in the West, not only in the American League, but in all of baseball. Despite disappointing seasons from guys like Nelson Velazquez and David Fry, we have been a force on offense with nearly every single player on our team hitting their weight and then some. However, the success of this team cannot start without the pitching rotation because they have been absolutely lights out electric. Because out of these starting 5 guys, our lowest WAR is Devin Smeltzer with a 1.1. Then there's our bullpen, which has been absolutely amazing. Tom Cosgrove's having an elite year. And of course, James Getz, who has 30 saves and might be an all-star this year. Here is all-star voting at the break with Matt Waldron almost guaranteed to go back to the game. And as I mentioned before, James Getz will be making the game with over 500k votes. After that, I'm a bit surprised to see Randy Trout in 5th place, but I'm even more surprised that our list of all-stars ended right after Getz and Waldron. We're taking on Seattle coming out of the all-star break, and we were down 1 at least until Dominic Fletcher batted in the tying run. And with only 1 out on the board, we have a chance to add more, as this was kind of a swinging bunt down the first base line that's gonna work. It was definitely a bit weird, but I can't argue with results, as Mason Valenzuela only seems to come up big when we're not watching. So now in the 6th inning, we still have a 1-run lead. And here's Gavin Sheets with 2 outs, who launches it, but straight to Julio Rodriguez. It's unfortunate we have not added any more runs. And now in the 8th inning, Seattle scored 3, and it was all because Dylan Coleman walked 3 guys in a row, and now Chang pops up. It has been very rare for our bullpen to have that type of meltdown. So now more than ever, we need Trout to deliver, but he hits it right to first. That is an inning-ending double play. This could be a very unfortunate end to the game, but we might not be done yet with a 2-out double. And then Cabrera hit an RBI single I forgot to record. So the winning run is at the plate, but that slider is so filthy. So Seattle is able to hold on. That is a very unfortunate way to end that game, and now we're trying to get our revenge, but we're down 2-0 and hit into a double play. So because of how last season went, I am genuinely scared of a second half hangover. We are suddenly in danger of getting shut out by our closest division rivals, and today we have had no answers for Mackenzie Gore as Trout gets way underneath this one, sending it back into left center field, and there is no doubt that it is not getting down. Coming out of the All-Star break, we lost the series to the Mariners, but to be honest, I'm really not worried yet. Last year at the deadline, we made a huge move to get Dominic Fletcher, and that has really paid off, but unfortunately, I'm really not seeing any moves that really make sense for us because even though there's someone like Pete Crow Armstrong that I'd love to add, it makes no sense for the Braves to trade him. And honestly, after that, everybody else is either at a position that we don't need, isn't an upgrade, or is way too expensive. I could also sell on guys like Gavin Sheets or Devin Smeltzer before they hit free agency, but as the best team in the American League, we are not in position to sell. The deadline passed and we did not make any moves. However, there is something that's even more exciting, and that is viewing a draft class with a potentially generational player. Here is our first look at the best prospect we have ever drafted in Zooey Mama. That is all blue. Let's go. I love how the game tries to trick you into thinking that you're not taking a generational player, but these guys are always going to have 63 vision and 58 discipline, and Emery McCarty is an absolute specimen with 78 power versus right. He is going to be ridiculous. First and foremost, I cannot believe that he fell to us because I was perfectly fine taking 89 potential Cal Gordon with our first pick. And by the way, the shortstop who went number 2 overall literally isn't even good. The furthest I've ever seen a generational player fall to was like number 4, and this guy just fell to number 9. So honestly, just for that, I think I have to play like 10 years of this series just to see his career play out. If that wasn't enough, we then landed John Cozart, who has 97 potential and is definitely our future closer. James Getz is alright, but this guy is the future. Our draft could have ended right there and I would have been happy, but then we selected Jack Macias, which honestly is sort of a disappointment, but I'll still absolutely take 86 potential, along with pretty good athleticism. But at least the next guy more than made up for it, Jody Eubanks, and even though he's 22 years old, he still has 96 potential, which is insane. And we ended the draft with a 90, a 93, and then a 96 potential player. This is easily the best draft of the entire series. People were telling me I couldn't improve this team unless I made big trades and big free agent signings, but that's hilarious because looking at the chart, we have improved every single season of the series and basically did it signing under the radar guys and bringing up our homegrown talent. We still have to worry about finishing strong though, and unfortunately we just gave up a huge home run to Trey Turner. So now we really need a rally because we're down 1 run in the bottom of the 8th inning, and here's Brian De La Cruz hitting a double. As the inning's off to a pretty good start, and even though Valenzuela flies out to deep center field, it's enough to advance De La Cruz to 3rd. Now we're counting on Randy to drive him in, but he got hit in the cheeks, and even though that's a free base, I'm a little nervous because David Fry has a chance to ground into a double play, but thankfully he's gonna score the runner. Now we're really cooking, but here's Paul Arrington with 2 outs who launches a line drive deep into left center field, going back for a 3-run shot that gives us a huge lead. Now here's something interesting. It's James Getz looking to close out Nick Madrigal, looking for his revenge against his former team, and he actually drives in an RBI. That was a classic Nick Madrigal single. And now, of course, the final out is gonna be Bryce Harper, as the Pickles lost their lead, but their offense exploded and came from behind for a big win. Unfortunately, after that, we got swept by Tampa Bay in 3 one-run games, so now we need to rally back in a 1-run game against Atlanta. 2-time All-Star Matt Waldron and his nasty knuckleball are on the mound, and he gets out of the inning. All I know is if this is the way our playoff games go, I might die of stress before the end of this video, but after a scoreless inning, Matt Waldron comes through, so we really need to repay him by having a big inning, and Chang starts out strong. Here is Joaquin Cabrera with 1 guy on, and he flies out deep into right field because he does not have a lot of power, and honestly, he's like a carbon copy of Mason Valenzuela, where he's not very fast, but each of them just consistently hit the ball really well, so the fact we were able to get both of these guys in the same draft class is pretty awesome. Also, this entire time, I thought that we were losing by 1 run, but apparently we're winning, so that changes everything for me. But we still have to be very careful with Riley up, but maybe not that careful. All it's gonna do is load the bases for Matt Olson, and I am literally begging him to chase something, but he didn't bite on the slider, and now it's a full count. This is a terrible time for Jorge to be missing his spots, as this feels like the longest at bat ever, but finally we force a ground out and slam the door on this inning. It looks like we're not gonna add any run support for James Getz, but since he led all closers in All-Star voting and leads the entire league in saves, I don't know if he needs it. After forcing soft contact to Albies, Sean Murphy is also gonna ground out, so Atlanta's last chance is Jeff McNeil, who pops up in the infield for an easy 1-2-3 sweep. Winning this tie game would help us sweep the Braves, and Gavin Sheets is gonna break it with a sacrifice fly into right field. So now with runners at the corners, we're looking to add more, but Riley made a fantastic play to throw out Paul Arrington. After that though, Atlanta tied it back up, so now we need another spark for our offense as lefty masher Brian De La Cruz flies out way deep into left field. That would have been over the fence if he was an inch underneath it, but lucky for us, we have another lefty masher at the bottom of the lineup in Rodolfo Castro. Castro was able to mash a single, but unfortunately Cabrera ruined everything with a double play, and then right after that, Atlanta took the lead with a solo shot. This has been a thrilling back and forth game, but now it's all up to Randy Trout to keep us alive, and facing a 2-2 count, he is absolutely battling, so maybe we can get a pitch to absolutely mash, and unfortunately, I think that was it, as the Braves are able to win it. Regardless, taking 2 games against Atlanta is definitely impressive, especially because we're 14.5 games up in our division. We have a huge cushion, and even though we're not having the best month, we're still winning enough. But now to end August, we are taking on the team that broke our heart at the very end of last season, the Royals, as we're down 1-0. But there are runners at the corners for Randy Trout, who really gets a ton on this pitch, going all the way back into right center field. It doesn't look like it's gonna go all the way, but it will allow the tying run to score. It's unfortunate that's the only run we scored that inning, so now we're tied up in the 9th, where Gavin Sheets flies out deep. So just like we saw in the final game last season, they have a chance to walk it off against us, but thankfully it's not gonna happen yet. To start extra innings, we're pinch hitting Dominic Fletcher, who unfortunately grounds straight to first base. But the good news about this is it does advance the runner to third base for Joaquin Cabrera, who bloops a Nick Madrigal style single to score the go-ahead run. It has definitely been a while since we've hit a home run, and I was just about to say Mason Valenzuela is not the guy to do that, but the announcer's jinx has caught me again, as that was an absolute rocket, and why not add one more, a line drive shot from Randy Trout going into right field and over the fence. What a great day to be a Pickles fan, as we gave them no chance to do what they did to us last season, and at the start of September, we are 87-47, 15 games up in the AL West, and looking at our offensive stats, it is very easy to see why, as we are super well-rounded with 7 guys hitting above 800 OPS, and how about Randy Trout leading the team in home runs with 23 along with 75 RBIs. Then in our rotation, we have 3 guys below a 3 ERA, so we've been completely dominant. James Getz has definitely fallen off as the season's gone on, on, but it's really no reason for concern, especially because the rest of our bullpen is doing a pretty dang good job. We are in 4th place for team batting average, but I think the biggest story for this team is we're in 1st place for team ERA. September call-ups are here, and I'm definitely looking to bring up an outfielder with speed, but we've already seen what Christian Franklin can do, so why not bring up a new face in last year's first-round pick, Brian Lozano. Of course, we're starting off the month in a close game against the Padres, down 1, at least until Randy Trout lined a double down the third base line. That ties this game up, and now Brian De La Cruz's chopping single up the middle is gonna score Randy Trout. Another day, another Pickles rally, but the Padres answered very fast with an RBI of their own, so it looks like this game's gonna come down to the wire as we're going to the 9th. Thankfully for us, our bullpen did not allow another run, which means we have a chance for a walk-off in front of our home fans, but it's gonna have to wait. By this point, our bullpen is so used to extra innings, but we still have to be careful facing Fernando Tatis, who we throw out. It is time to see Brian Lozano run, and maybe Gavin will be able to drive him in, as that was close. Now it's Cabrera's turn, as the rookie's gonna help out the rookie, sending him all the way home from second base to walk this game off. That is a signature Pickle win to start September, but now closing in on 100 wins, every game counts as Lozano's able to single, but we need some runs because we're down 2 to the Astros, and this will certainly work. Mason Valenzuela into left field. It stays fair for an RBI. The speed of Brian Lozano has helped us out once again, but we definitely need some more help, down 1 run in the 8th. And here's lefty masher Paul Arrington with 1 on, but before he can even swing at anything, Fletcher is getting thrown out. I understand why you wanted to steal in that situation, but in hindsight, it really messed us up, as Trevor Rogers is in to close us out, but not so fast. We get aboard with a single. Cabrera's down to his last strike though, so he needs a meatball, or maybe Rogers can walk him, but instead he got jammed and the Astros are able to win. We tried to pull off a comeback, but the Astros won 3 out of 4 of those games, and I'm definitely a little concerned about us losing series this close to the playoffs, as Brian De La Cruz is gonna drive in a tying run against the Angels. The second half of the season has definitely felt rockier than the first half, but Rodolfo Castro is gonna silence me with a huge 3-run shot. We were down 1 run just 2 swings ago, but that game changed so fast because apparently Castro hit 3 home runs. With 13 games to go, we are at 95 wins, but more importantly, we have officially clinched the playoffs. Now we're looking to secure the best record in the American League, and win number 100 should help us, but unfortunately, they beat out the double play, so it's clear the game is making us work for triple digits, as that one went right to Trout. However, I believe in us because we live in these moments, and this is also an Angels team that we just swept last week, so they're not very good as Fletcher flies out, so it might take extra innings to win this one as Chang also pops up. Our bullpen once again held it down, and now here's Randy Trout going the other way, keeping it fair for an RBI double. This is a big game because while we can get win number 100, James Getz is looking for save number 50. He has been absolutely electric this year, and there's another strikeout, so he is just 1 out away facing their 9-hitter, but unfortunately I spoke too soon because Nito lines it into left field where it drops, and the runner is gonna round third to score the tying run. That is so unfortunate because we have to play another inning and we're hitting it right at their guys, so it really feels like we can't catch a break as it's now or never, but Dominic Fletcher just got too much air underneath this one. Honestly, at this point, I'm just gonna sim ahead, and if we lose, as Mike Trout is the one to end it, so those milestones are gonna have to wait, as at least no matter what, we have the best record in literally all of baseball, so I'm just gonna sim ahead where we win our 100th game, and then in the very next game, James Getz earned save 50. With those things out of the way, I don't think there's anything to do except sim forward into the playoffs, as we finish the season 104-58, which is obviously the best record we've ever had by almost 30 games. Looking at awards, it looks like we're not taking home any of the major ones, but James Getz does win reliever of the year, and then Cade Horton, the guy we picked up on the waiver wire, was in 3rd place for rookie of the year. Bailey Falter won Gold Glove pitcher, but Randy Trout could not repeat his Gold Glove first base, but it's really cool Getz won a new award, and we had another rookie of the year finalist. I think we all knew this season was gonna be a success, but I don't think anyone expected this absolute breakthrough, especially as Randy Trout was our best player, and he's up to a 91 overall, and from the start of the season when he was an MVP candidate, he really held this team together all the way through, but he also had some help from a trade deadline move last year in Dominic Fletcher, alongside big free agent signing Brian De La Cruz. Then it was 3 other players from his draft class who made key contributions, being Joaquin Cabrera, Mason Valenzuela, and Wally Booker, while our catcher Paul Arrington also quietly enjoyed his best season ever. However, at the heart of this Pickle team team was our amazing pitching rotation, led by, of course, Matt Waldron, but Bailey Falter and Cade Orden were also consistently good, while our long reliever Colby Allard also had a great season. The bullpen was basically awesome all season long, and of course, the biggest breakout star on probably the entire team, James Getz, finishing with 53 saves, along with a 2.73 ERA and a 0.98 whip. That is just insane. Plain and simple, this team was entirely led by our first draft class of the series, which went in order: Randy Trout, Mason Valenzuela, Wally Booker. Then we picked up James Getz in the 4th round, before getting Joaquin Cabrera in the 6th. However, it's time for the playoffs, where we're taking on the Angels, and getting a closer look at this team, they've rebuilt really well with Dylan Cease, Tariq Skubal, and scrolling further down, Josh Young. This is our first playoff game in franchise history, and with the Matt Waldron knuckleball at our disposal, I am feeling pretty good about our chances. I'm definitely glad I'm not the only one who can not hit that pitch, but now the big question is whether or not Mike Trout can hit this thing, and I think the answer is a huge yes. Just one swing has put us down 1 run, and I do not know if it's just the nerves of the playoffs, but Matt Waldron is actively falling apart, giving up 3 runs in this inning. I don't know where this team came from, but they are not the Pickles we've seen all this season, because in 3 innings of play, we do not have a single hit against Max Fried. Our all-star Matt Waldron has also completely collapsed, but at least we struck back with 3 runs, as I was honestly ready to cut our losses and move on to the next game, but it looks like there's still a spark of hope. Vaughn Grissom hit the home run, and now he walks, so there's 1 away for Valenzuela, who unfortunately chops it down the 3rd baseline for an inning-ending double play. Angels scored another run, but I'm not giving up hope as Fried kicked that one like a soccer ball, going up, and he's gonna make the play at first. I know I said I wasn't giving up right before the play, but that completely defied the laws of physics, so we're just gonna accept and try to move on from this first loss. In game number 2, we're starting out with Sixto Sanchez on the mound, but if we want a chance today, we need to get ahead of Tariq Skubal, and at least through the first 3 batters, it is not looking like that's gonna be super easy. Thankfully though, it looks like Sixto is gonna buy us some time, and now Randy Trout is able to launch a double into left field, so I was really hoping that could spark the rest of our offense, but we're not squaring anything up. Lucky for us though, Sixto is buying us time, and has brought us down to our last out where Cabrera singles, which gives Grissom a chance to do something, but that's another ground out. Then Sanchez could not hold on forever, there's a home run, and I'm definitely concerned that our team is falling apart at the worst possible time, because even though we had the best record in baseball, we cannot square up anything. Even with a home run, this has been a good start from Sixto Sanchez, and thankfully Fry going the other way is finally going to return the favor with a tying solo shot. We really needed that, so it's coming at the perfect time, because at least on 1 swing, we broke through Skubal. Sanchez's ratings are not nearly as good as Tariq's are, but he's keeping us in this game, and now in the 6th inning, Vaughn Grissom hits a double, but of course, the big problem is scoring him, as we have 2 outs on the board, so Brian De La Cruz is our last chance, and as you know, he's a lefty's worst nightmare, but not this time. The next team to score could very well win this game, and unfortunately, it's gonna be Los Angeles, so we just need to get out of the inning with the bases loaded. Valenzuela cannot handle it cleanly, and a run scores. That was the worst possible time for an error, but we're definitely not done yet, because Chang just dug out a low pitch, sending it deep into center field, where it is able to scale the fence for a home run. Without an error, that would have tied the game, but maybe all we needed was to get Skubal out of the game so we can start feasting on this bullpen. Dominic Fletcher is pinch hitting in the 7th inning, and what a play at short. The throw comes in time, as that great play potentially just cost us another run, but we get Trout out, so at least we're only in a 1-run deficit, but we're definitely not getting any closer to scoring, because sometimes you could have the best timing in the world and still pop up. This is our last chance to score, going up against Alex Lang, and this is certainly a good start from Brian De La Cruz, who delivers a ground rule double, and he would advance to 3rd, where Gavin Sheets dribbles this up the middle to tie the game. That's the perfect time for our offense to come up big, as there's still 1 out, at least until Arrington grounds into a double play. But regardless, I feel pretty good because we're at home and we've lived in extra inning games, but I spoke too soon, because that is a 2-run shot to open the 10th. The announcer's jinx strikes again, and now simming forward, they hit another home run, so I don't know how the heck we're gonna put up 3 runs, but Fletcher got us off to a good start. It's definitely an interesting decision to leave their closer in the game in the 10th, and even though they pulled him here, the damage is already done, as there's 2 guys aboard and Grissom comes up just short. I was ready to crown him playoff MVP, but instead it will have to be Mason Valenzuela, who is going to clear the bases with this 2 RBI double. That makes Randy Trout the winning run, and there is no way 1 swing, 1 nuke, and 1 Portland Pickles win. I cannot believe we just pulled that off. A walk-off bomb in our first playoff series from the first player we ever drafted. And this is a kid-friendly show, but I have to say, this moment absolutely tickles my pickle. I do not know how the heck we did that, but hey, I cannot complain. That is the most signature win in my channel's history. But now we really have to lock back in because we're up against Dylan Cease. And to make things even worse, he's somehow going up against Devin Smelter, who's 76 overall. He's actually holding it down though, and that's the slowest changeup I've ever seen. So there's a very good reason we've struggled to score our first run, but this could be it as Brian De La Cruz smashes it into the right center gap. Valenzuela hits the stop sign at third. Mason would have scored if he was slightly less chunky, but I'm not falling for the circle change. That is going to get us on the board. But De La Cruz is on third base with 2 outs, so I want to send him home, but Gavin Sheets unfortunately lines out. It still feels very good to have a 1-run lead, but that's not going to last long. So this is setting up to be one of the greatest series of baseball ever played. And even though it's 4 o'clock in the morning right now, I am on the edge of my seat as Paul Arrington drives that one all the way to the wall in center field. That is going to score the runner all the way from first. Our offense has done just enough to keep us in this one as Valenzuela actually gives us one a pretty solid drive going into right field and somehow over the fence for a 2-run home run. He is not known as a home run hitter at all, but Mason came up big here. And ever since Trout hit that home run, the energy has shifted because at the beginning of the series, we could not hit anything, and now the Angels are facing elimination. If we win, we're going to the ALDS, and Joaquin Cabrera on the first pitch he saw blasted it up the middle. So that is a pretty good start against Patrick Sandoval, as now we have 2 aboard, and a great chance to rally to earn the lead, but unfortunately Valenzuela grounds into a double play. Somehow that inning resulted in no runs, which is definitely discouraging, but David Fry of all people is going to make us forget about it pretty quick with his second bomb of the postseason. This guy sucked during the regular season, so at least he's making his money during the playoffs, as we scored the first 2 runs of the game before Trout got the Angels on the board. But obviously our offense has been way too good to give up, and with runners at the corners, we should not have swung at that, but it still drops in for an RBI. We have recushioned our lead back to 2 runs as De La Cruz goes the other way into right field, going back and hopping over the fence. That puts 2 runners in scoring position for Castro, who scores 1. So unless the Angels pull off something crazy, we're moving on, and I need to stop because what just happened? Bailey Falter gave up 3 runs before Coleman gave up 3 in 1 inning. So in just a snap of a finger and a press of a button, a 3-run lead turned into a 2-run deficit as our bullpen, which has been good all year long, somehow blew it, but David Fry is going to give us at least one more chance. That's his second home run of the game, so it's only a 1-run game against Alex Lang, who blew it last time. We are pinch hitting Dominic Fletcher on the final out, but unfortunately he could not turn on that. So even though I was just talking about going to the ALCS a second ago, we have to play a winner-takes-all game 5. Even though it really sucks our bullpen blew that game, it definitely balances out the shenanigans of game 2. And no matter what happens, I think this has been one of the best playoff series ever played, as Cabrera sends this into deep right center and forget about it, a 2-run shot. After playing terribly in his first game, Matt Waldron has only given up 1 single hit in this game, so he's definitely redeeming himself. But the Angels finally scored a run in the 7th inning, so we need to wrap this up. And I'm already getting bad feelings with a man on first base as Alcala gives up a deep drive into left field. Thankfully, it's gonna be caught. With 2 outs, all I'm asking for is that we survive, as this one's lifted into right field. Thank you. We had the best closer in baseball this season, and we need him more than ever, because even one bad pitch against the heart of the order could be devastating. If we lose, we can kiss our amazing season goodbye. But here's the man I'm scared of the most, Mike Trout, who just hits it to Valenzuela. There are 2 outs, but Getz is losing his command, so we need to get this over quick as Young pops up into shallow right field. Sheets coming in, giving chase, and that is going to send us to the ALCS. It is finally over, and what an amazing series. Next up, we're taking on the Yankees, who have 99 Vlad Jr., Aaron Judge, and Jeremy Pena. And I'm definitely nervous because this squad is loaded and Vlad already hit a home run. Sixto Sanchez had a very good start against the Angels, but right now it looks like he's out of gas because he's already given up 2 runs, and with a runner at third base, this sacrifice fly makes it 3. This literally just looks like a batting practice field for Aaron Judge and Vlad Jr. And just to add insult to injury, we're getting shut out by our former ace, Eric Lauer. Not only are we getting shut out, but we also have not gotten a single hit, at least until this Brian Lozano home run, as it's very good to see the rookie making plays. I was hoping that would spark a rally, but it simply never did. And the next game opened with another solo home run, followed by a bomb from Aaron Judge. So while I could show the rest of this game, game, I think it's very clear what happened. And at the end of the day, this Yankees team is way better than us, but we're gonna do our best for the rest of the series. As Cabrera singles, that's gonna score a run unless De La Cruz stops and decides to go. That was a terrible mistake. This game should be tied up as we keep getting guys on base, as they're loaded up for Mason Valenzuela, who chops it straight to Vlad Jr. Now we just need to prevent him from scoring another run, and that is easier said than done, as that pitch was left right over the plate, and Vlad is gonna take advantage every time. I'm not even kidding, he just hit his third home run of the day. And going to the 7th inning, how about another 2-run bomb? Clearly simulating pitching versus me pressing the buttons makes zero difference, because the reality is that there's rich teams, then poor teams, then us, and no matter how many waiver wire guys we find value from, they're never gonna be quite as good as that. We are fighting for our life in Game 4 as we're facing elimination in a 0-0 game in the 7th inning, and of course we're relying on Matt Waldron's knuckleball, which is no longer working as well, but thankfully it looks like the runner is gonna test the throw to home plate and he's thrown out. The Yankees may have Vlad Jr., but we have the knuckleball, but of course he can hit that too, launching it into left field, and that is like 5 home runs in the last 2 games. This man is an animal. The entire season could come down to this, so Chang is swinging for the fences. On the very first pitch he saw, that cuts it to a 1-run game just like that. Why pay $40 million a year to Vlad Jr. when you can get a stud like Chang off the scrap heap for almost nothing? But jokes aside, whether we win or lose, I am very proud of this team because they defied pretty much all expectations. And I think about halfway through this series, it was very clear we were not making a comeback as we watched the Yankees celebrate from the bench. But there's no doubt this season was groundbreaking for our team and our organization, so there's no reason to doubt that another year of talent development, bringing up a new wave of prospects, and maybe bringing in a couple free agents can't have this team back stronger than ever. I am not bringing back any of these free agents because they're all pretty old and are about to start regressing, and even though I'm sort of interested in bringing back Alcala, our owner does not want to shell out $4.5 million for a reliever. Gavin Sheets is interesting because he's 32 years old, but looking at it now, him and Velasquez are very similar players, with the difference being that Gavin Sheets actually performs consistently, and at $3.7 million, he is really not breaking the bank for 1 year. Even after making it to the ALCS game, we are still not allowed to spend any money on these top players, and our owner's strapping us for cash more than ever because our core is under arbitration. Because of how fast our farm system's improving, there were basically no free agent moves that I could even consider making to complement this team, because even though we can't afford most prospects as it is, adding another player would have blocked somebody like Brian Lozano, for instance, who's projected to get a lot more playing time. That was a very quick offseason of retaining players, but when you're broke and have the success that we've had developing a farm system, there's really no way to improve in free agency. Comment below what you thought of this episode of The Pickles, and hopefully I'll be able to see it before the next episode comes out on Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and drop a like and subscribe, and if you do like my content, click right here to see some more.